Hello everyone, and welcome to This Nintendo Life, episode 101. My name is NBZ, and I am the host of this show. It's about Nintendo. Bally, how are you doing? What would you put in room 101?
I don't even know that reference. What am I missing here?
There's an old British TV show called Room 101, in which the celebrities or people who'd go on the show would be asked, okay, there's something you want to get rid from the world, like you want to just get rid of something from the world, it needs to disappear and never come back, and they would lock it in Room 101, and I think it recently came back on TV. But
right.
Anyway, that's the premise of that show. I guess you missed it.
I was just trying to fit in some Wonderful 101 reference, but okay.
Yeah, sure. We could do that as well. Wonderful 101, a game which neither of us have played, and people tell us to play all the time. But, maybe one day. Maybe it'll come to Switch. Who knows? The Platinum, I remember, were teasing that at some point, but we shall see. Anyway, Bally, how have you been doing? You've been running and being around places recently?
Yes, I ran my fourth marathon, the Loch Ness Marathon, last Sunday, and my legs still haven't fully recovered, which is a little concerning, but I did push hard. I got a brand new personal best of 3 hours and 14, which I'm very happy with.
Excellent.
Having a few months off from running for now, and we'll get back into it in spring, I think, which means that there's obviously more time to play the video games that are coming out at the moment, which is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in the video game world, and we're going to get into it. But before we do that, Bally, how about you tell us what the lay of the land is going to be today? What is the talking on the show going to be about?
So we're going to do a 2-segment show for the simple reason that there is just so much that has come out to talk about that we want to cover. So that will be our what we've been playing for the first segment, maybe slightly extended. And then for our second segment, there's a few podcasts about doing this, but we thought, you know what, we got to do a TNL take on the Nintendo Switch after 6 months. So we're going to do a sort of the state of Nintendo Switch, looking at the ups, the downs, the games that have come out, and maybe what's to come in 2018 with the Nintendo Switch, and have a bit of an analysis.
Yeah, it's a good time to break things down, and I think there's been lots of surprises and lots of frustrations, just lots of things to talk about with the Switch generally, so good to just have a bit of a discussion about it. Before we do that, let's get into the video games that we've been playing. And Bally, a game came out that kind of swept everyone by storm. It already hit number 1 on the US eShop charts in the week that SteamWorld Dig 2, or a week after SteamWorld Dig 2 came out, in fact.
It's number 2 in Europe as well, so it's still up there.
Yeah, it's really doing well. It is Golf Story, a game that was only announced a few months ago. Its existence was just not anywhere before that. Apparently made by a couple of Australian guys, like this small studio called Sidebar Games. No one really knows anything about them, or like can't hardly contact them. Like, it seems very mysterious,
right.
But it just kind of came out of the blue, and we've both been playing quite a lot of it. So let's give the pitch real quick, because this is maybe a genre that hasn't been around for a while. It is, of course, a sports-style game. It's a golf game. But back in the day on Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo tried this kind of weird thing with the Mario sports titles, where Camelot, in fact, who are developing them, made them into basically mini RPGs, where you'd have progression, and there'd be like a story mode you go through and stuff. Bally, you played Mario Golf Advance, right?
I didn't play the advanced version. I played Color for both tennis and golf, and I also played the N64 versions of both tennis and golf. The thing to say is that on the N64 versions, they really stripped out the RPG elements, and it became far more
right. It was just more of
playing
an
tournaments. Right,
yeah.
But the cool thing was you could ship over your RPG character using the game pack on the back of the N64 controller to ship over your Game Boy Color character and use them in those games. Now, I should say, when it came to golf, I preferred Mario Golf on the N64 and GameCube. So far fewer RPG elements. I was more into just playing through like the tournaments, etc. It was really the Game Boy Color tennis game that I really went for the RPG story when it came to the upgrades and things like that. And you sort of work through this story, work through these tournaments, you get upgrades, you boost your skills, get new tennis rackets, etc., etc., and then eventually, like, the main guy you face at the end is like a one-on-one with Mario, and like that's the big
RPG
build up. And I know that there was an RPG element with the golf version on Game Boy Color. I never played that, but I did play it, but I didn't dive into the RPG perhaps as headlong as I did with the tennis version. But yeah, I absolutely loved those style of games. I'm incredibly used to a lot of the mechanics of what Golf Story hints at with the 3-point swing system, which was invented back on like the original Golf, I believe, with NES, which is
NES Golf,
which has come up plenty recently in the media with the whole Iwata.
Bally, it's so weird. There's so much golf happening in my vicinity right now. It's just we'll get to it when we talk about the SNES Classic, but like, boy, there's lots of golf happening. What's
hilarious is that the format of a golf RPG, while it is something I've been into in the past, is not something... It's not an itch I even knew needed scratching. And now this game has just come along and has scratched it so well that I'm just blown away like by what it's doing. And what's interesting is that this game, I'm very used to those mechanics. And I was very interested when you got this game, Nbz, because you're someone who's played far more RPGs than me, but you've played zero golf games. So I was very used to Mario Golf. I was used to the swing system. I understood like clubs and slice and hook and, you know, bunkers and 2-up with 3 to play and all this terminology and sort of a bit of golf knowledge, which can help to some degree with these games because it can get a little technical. Although golf games are good at like educating non-golf people on those things, and I do follow golf loosely outside of video games. I do quite like to follow golf generally. So I was really interested to see, Nbz, what you thought of like the mechanics end of this game and like how you got your head around it, and was it a smooth process? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so I am familiar with the system, as you've mentioned in the past, because, you know, I used to come around to your house and play these games sometimes, and often lose poorly to you because you knew what you were doing. And
you weren't a big fan of it, I don't think. You were like,
no, not really. I think it's mainly because like you just got really good at these games. Like it's the same thing with Mario Kart, where I never really enjoyed playing you because it was kind of like, you know, the older brother stomping like the younger child, you know, it was that kind of scenario. I just
ate up Mario sports games.
Yeah. So for that reason, it wasn't really my thing. But like nowadays, I can much more appreciate, you know, it's very simple, but there are definitely layers to it, right? Because it's not just the get the timing right on the length and the accuracy, but it's also about which club do I use and whether or not to take account of wind and slopes and all that stuff. Like there's subtle little things in there that eventually, as you get further in the game, and it's good because I think it starts out with like flat places with no wind interfering, so you basically get used to just the swinging and the timing, and then they build on top of that later on, so you have to account for how, you know, when it's like medium slope or a high wind going in one direction, you have to go in the other direction, and it's good. I think maybe it could explain that stuff a little better. Like there was one segment where you're watching a video tutorial and the woman's telling you, oh, you can hold this button and this button to do like top spin and like backspin, and I kind of accidentally skipped past what she was saying, so I didn't quite get it down, so I don't really know what those do 100%. Like I understand that the backspin kind of, if when it hits the ground it'll kind of roll back a little bit, and the top one like hopefully like smooths it on a bit, but aside from that I don't know like too much more technical about it, but yeah, and overall, I think mechanics are good.
Because spin is essentially just a stat that you build up, and basically the more you build up that stat, the more your ball will automatically spin when you choose to use backspin or topspin. So I'm at the stage where we should also say that we're roughly the same level in this game. We both played roughly 10, 11 hours. I'm like level 22. You're around the same. I'm on to like the 5th world out of what looks to be about 8 worlds. So we're both pretty far in, and yeah, so on spin it feels like, and it's funny because the internet at the moment, there's no like official this is what happens. Everyone is sort of guessing as to, I think this stat does this and I think this stat does this, and so this is just my take. But the more you improve your spin, simply when you activate backspin on a green, for example, or a fairway, it will just simply spin more. It's not like you can it's fixed. So like if you've upgraded your spin a lot and then you use backspin, it will spin backspin a lot. Like there's no way of doing a little bit of backspin or a lot of backspin. It's just a simple case of you have to upgrade your spin to the level you feel comfortable at which to enact it.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm not super, familiar with the individual stats that you upgrade when you're leveling up.
Right.
What I've basically been doing is, because when you try and boost your power, your other stats reduce, right?
Yeah.
Because like the harder you're hitting it, like the less accuracy you're going to have, etc. And so what I've been doing is like slowly bumping up my power, and then if it drops my other stats, like bumping those up as well. So basically doing this elasticity between the two, trying to balance them both out and not like losing too much on either end. That's basically how I've gone about it.
Through my experience of golf games, I always liked to play as Mario, of course, but more specifically with golf games, because he had really balanced stats. Like you can obviously be DK, you can be Bowser, who can just power like to the green, and you can get really far if you're super accurate. But when a powerful character like DK Bowser, you were slightly off, they'd go way off. And if you know a lot about golf, it's not about how often you can be good, it's about how often you can prevent being bad, because one bad hole can muck up an entire round. So I tend to always go for the stats that boost like your control, your accuracy, your like, there's like another degree control, I can't remember what it's called now, but I like to boost those stats, and like your spin, for example, and then once those are all in sort of in order, I can boost power, or like I'll happily boost power using power inducing clubs perhaps, but I won't ever. I'll make sure that those core stats that help your control work out, because they end up being so important when you're playing stroke play, which you do frequently in this game, which is cool.
Yeah, I don't know how big an impact all those stats are actually having on my, just general playing, because I feel like I have a really good sense of control over what I want to do at any point. The idea that you have this precision option where you can basically use whatever club you want, but pull it back to the exact point at which you want the ball to land, I think is really clever, and just it makes it much easier. And it's also nice that it gives you the little shadow on the bar so that you know exactly what you need to hit in order to get it into that area, and it allows you to deal with the wind and deal with all these other like external elements,
definitely,
but really nail where you want the ball to go. And so honestly, it's kind of weird, because there are moments where I'll fall into a bunker and I won't necessarily be that angry about it, because I know I can easily chip it out of there and get it exactly where I need it to be regardless. Like obviously places like bunkers reduce the distance that you can go, but so far with the courses I've done, there have only been a couple of holes that are like super, super long, and even those holes are like par 5s or par 6s. So
the funny thing is, and you might not know this, Nbz, but like there's no such thing as a par 6 in like real.
I know,
real
yeah,
golf.
I know there's no par 6. I do understand.
I thought that was hilarious when I saw that on. It's one of the courses in the fourth world. It's like I won't spoil what style it is, but that course is pretty tough, I would say, and judging on when to go into bunkers and fairways is definitely, like, I needed to be on fairways more often than not with that course just to reach greens and things, and like that definitely helped.
But I mean, what I'm getting at is I think the game is quite forgiving. Like, even if you go into the water, it will basically put you right where you landed in the water, near the nearest land part. So it might not be ideally where you want to be, but I don't think you lose like a stroke for going in water at all or anything. Like, there's no penalty.
I believe there's a set of clubs, the fairways, that actually reduce the penalty by 1 when you go out of bounds or into water using them. So by and large, if you're approaching the green using those fairways and you've gone far off into some water or something, you're not penalized by an extra stroke, which is huge. Like, that's game changing in some aspects, so like it helps tremendously. And like, it's interesting because this game, maybe it will happen more so to the end of the game, and I don't know what happens at the end of the game, but you never play more than 9 holes, and that's something that's very It's like the game has these mechanics and they're super solid and I like them. They obviously have flaws and we can get onto that, but the game is far more focused, it seems, on the fact that it is an RPG and like a story game and linking up with characters. And where Mario traditionally, even at the start of the game, you'd play 18 holes consistently. This game has said, you know what, let's not do 18 holes. That kind of detracts from the style of game we're trying to get at here. We're going to do lots of shorter challenges, and then the long challenges are going to be 9 holes. And like 9 holes only takes maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes max to play on this game, whereas normally it takes half an hour to 40 minutes, especially if you're playing like the GameCube version of Mario Golf. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I think it's a very smart decision because it appeals more to the crowd who are less interested in the golf and more interested in like the trappings of running around and doing mini challenges and talking to people.
But even someone who's keen on the golf, this has enough to offer, which I think is a really great balancing act. It does well.
Yeah. Totally. It is very smart, and you can tell that it's not a super serious golf game because there are all these extra elements. Like obviously you have the water and the bunkers, but there is courses where there are animals on the field and they will interfere if you accidentally get in their range, or there are just certain hazards that you have to get around that are unconventional. Like there's a lot of stuff in there to mix it up, and generally the holes can be quite long and hard, and that's a deliberate choice on the game's end not to adhere to the realistic standards of golf where par sixes don't exist and that kind of thing. So
there's been a lot of comparison to Earthbound with this style of game, NBZ. Are there any comparisons in relation to Earthbound you think that this game does well, or do you think that's an oversimplistic representation of this game?
I kind of do. I agree that there are maybe elements of quirkiness here and there. Like it definitely, like the art style is kind of evocative of that. It feels, definitely. It feels closer to maybe a Stardew Valley than an Earthbound. It definitely got that charm to it.
The art style and the little quips and the charm are quite Earthbound, I can say, but the overall story doesn't feel like it's doing anything like Earthbound's trying to do. No,
it's more in like the character, like dialogue department, I think, more than anything else is what people are saying. And like on that note, I think they do some really clever stuff with the dialogue boxes where they like grow in size when characters are shouting, or like they're very, very tiny text when someone's whispering, and they're like fall on their side, and you kind of have the classic Japanese anime like water droplets sometimes next to a character. There's a lot of like emotive stuff going on in the game regardless of the fact that it's pixel art, and I think it does well with some people have been going on about the font choice and not being a fan of it, and I think they deliberately, I think they made that choice because there's actually a pace at which the dialogue works, and I think it's interesting because I was trying to press B to like not skip through, but to like read it quickly myself instead of waiting for the text to scroll in. But I've stopped doing that because a lot of the effect of what the characters are saying is conveyed right with the timing of what they've done with it. So it's clever. I think it's a smart way of like getting across a lot of character without necessarily having stuff to draw on.
Do you have a particular like line or character or moment that just made you like chuckle, or you thought that is hilarious?
I've taken a few screenshots for sure. Like there was one I posted on Twitter today.
I love that one.
There's this like professional golfer who is basically trying to, he's doing advertising and selling products, but he's doing it as if he is like an actual reviewer of the products and like giving his honest take on them, and yet behind the scenes he's just basically being given money and being told what to say by the producers and everything. And so I basically was like, this is basically like all these fucking sponsored YouTubers out there who like, guys, I love this, they didn't pay me or anything. It's very funny with that stuff. There's like other stuff where there's a point where your coach is next to you and you're on the computer and he's like trying to get you to reply to internet comments essentially, and it's like lampooning internet commenters and trying to deal with them, and there's also like during the competition there's like media interviews happening,
that's cool.
And it's like the whole idea of people just never answering the question in an interview. Like they play with that.
There's like really dry sports interviews that are terrible, and then your character's like, I've got something to say, and they're like, oh, we're not interested in you, goodbye. And it's sort of I
No.
love the disc golf players, and
Yeah.
I particularly love them because as someone who has played quite a lot of Ultimate Frisbee during my time at university, I feel like
I was thinking about that a lot, actually.
I really
That was
understand
that
a lot of the idea of disc, and they never call it Frisbee, it's always disc, and I was like, this is hilarious. They really go with that joke. And sort of the Ultimate Frisbee disc golf community, they're not one and the same, but they're similar, and it really feels like they can get very proud of what they do. They're very individual. It's quite indie. It's quite hipster. It's a bit unusual. They're very proud to not be like a stereotypical sport like golf, for example. So the idea that these sort of hipster disc golf players just look down on golf and just think it's the worst thing, and actually there's like a campaign to like try and get them off of the course, and they have to go and play their disc golf in the woods. It's pretty funny. I've enjoyed that sort
It's
of
on point
aspect.
for sure. Like, there's a lot of stuff with the humor that is definitely, it works well. And it's not just the dialogue. Like, sometimes they do really great visual humor. Like, there's this one moment where they're sitting down to have a dinner, and like the girls arrive, and like you're sent outside to like keep them busy while your coach is trying to cook in the kitchen, and then they're like constantly cutting between him and everything burning down and failing, and you trying to convince them in the garden that there are herbs there. Like, it's like very simple. Like, it's not going anywhere crazy with the situations or the scenarios, but it's just very well executed, and I think that's a strength of this game.
And there's a real consistency of how it's executing those. Like, it doesn't feel like it lets up massively. There's like pretty funny stuff frequently throughout, which it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing is, because this game was developed by Australian developers, as I mentioned, there were people in the NeoGAF thread who are like, yeah, this is clearly Australian because of these phrases people are using. Like, sucked in apparently is an Australian phrase that gets used a lot throughout the game, and it's led me to a tendency of reading everyone's dialogue in an Australian accent in my head, and it just makes everything even funnier. I don't know, it just works. I guess because that's the headspace they're coming from. But just generally running around and interacting with stuff, there's a lot of cool polished stuff in there that I didn't expect, which is weirdly juxtaposed to some other stuff which I feel a little janky in this game, because obviously being developed by two people, it's a very big game. It looks great, it's just really well done, but there are a few bugs here and there I've encountered. There's a moment when you go from inside to outside, and the music doesn't like transition properly, and it doesn't like fade in properly a little bit. So that's kind of stuff that I feel could have been better. But
I actually had the game hang on me completely, and I had to like quit out and come back in, and it worked.
Oh, really?
I read someone on Twitter say like they had some mission they were doing, had the outcome of the mission had done something that prevented them from progressing any further, and it had saved, and like he had to restart the entire game, and like he couldn't progress. So I've heard a few things here and there, but I've been lucky enough so far not to be overly affected by anything.
Yeah, it can be unfortunate because there are a lot of like little things. Like I was in the area that you're in now, and there's a person you talk to get an item from, and I accidentally like somehow made him give me the item twice, so it appeared 2 times in my inventory. I'm definitely not supposed to have that item twice, which was a little weird. Like, there's stuff like that which I can forgive them for, because geez, this game is enormous, and it's like apparently they made it in less than a year. It's kind of crazy, but it could have. There's a lot of stuff that's like a little bit out of place. But having said that, I was going to say there's like loads of little touches here and there. The idea that you can throw a golf ball at every NPC in the game and they'll have a unique like thing to say, like lambasting you for throwing this freaking golf ball at their head.
I discovered something about the Pro Controller through this. I don't know if you saw my tweet, NBZ, but there's a speaker inside the Pro Controller.
Are you sure?
I am absolutely 100% certain, and like someone backed me up on NeoGAF with this. But when you like throw a golf ball against a person, like it will make a noise coming out of the Pro Controller. And someone said that they played another game where sound had also come out of their Pro Controller. I can't remember what game it was, but there's something. I think it was Mario and Rabbids.
Yeah.
There's something you can do in that game where sound can come out of your Pro Controller. So I don't know why there is a speaker in the Pro Controller. It's like back to the Wiimote days. It's really weird, but Yeah, it's a weird one, and like we've not even mentioned HD Rumble yet, but that's another aspect they've just gone to town on with this game.
Oh my god, HD Rumble is so good in this game. It is ridiculous. Like, it's crazy that there's this feature that we all like laughed about and were like, yeah, that's going to be used never, because Nintendo just like want to do this one ball game where it makes sense, and what other application can you have for that? And yet, like, there is a real tangibility to the golf in this game because of, it's not just the HD Rumble, it's the mixture of that with the sound design, right? Because you hear like the slice of the golf club hit your ball, and you feel it at the same time. You feel that slice, you feel every drop, like every time the ball bounces, like it gets softer and softer. If it goes into the hole, you feel like rumbles go from one part of the controller to the other Joy-Con and back again, like it's rolling around in the hole once it goes in it. Like, there's such care and attention to detail with that stuff. It's really clever, and it works so well for this game in particular because of all these moments where you're hitting things and you're feeling that physical feedback.
A couple of negatives. We mentioned it just before recording, but there's not enough detail about the greens. Like, you're given a single arrow and it'll say like light, medium, or strong, or something, like saying the strength at which that slope is. And between other golf games I've played, like,
basically,
right, so like Mario Golf or even Wii Sports, like you're given far more description about the gradient of greens, and that can be a bit tricky to putt around sometimes. And at this stage, most of the greens aren't super sloped, and they're getting more and more sloped, and I'm quite nervous about the end of the game, how difficult it's going to be with a lot of that putting. But that's just one aspect that's a bit frustrating. There could have been just more visual representation.
It's just a little hard sometimes to figure out what exactly the game wants from you, because like, for the first time I came across a medium slope, it felt way stronger than it should have been.
Medium is strong. Yeah. I would also say that they're quite infrequent, but there's a few like really poor missions that aren't to do with golf, that are like collecting things, or like sprinting around, like laps.
See, I like those. I don't know. I think that they aren't really mechanically complex or anything. Like, they're just like in there to break up the pacing. Honestly, that's the thing that I think I like the most about this game, is the pacing is very well done, because you'll spend a bunch of time like getting to a new area, talking to everyone, figuring things out. Then you'll do a bunch of mini challenges here and there. You might like do a bit of the main quest in between, and then you have your like big meaty main mission, which is doing the course at the end. And then after that, like, you have a bunch of cutscenes, and then you do some more like mini challenges. And I just think it's broken up very nicely. So I like that there's other gameplay focused stuff that isn't just hitting golf balls, you know?
And I certainly like how infrequent they are. Like, it's not like they're consistent at all. And they're not strong missions in and of themselves, but in terms of breaking up golf, you're right, they are actually quite welcome. And like, I'm glad they're not a huge part of the game at all. And like, golf is still the focus by and large.
Yeah, and it's cool because there are like different variations, like the disc golf we were talking about, and there's other stuff coming up later in the game that's gonna like put a spin on it. And I appreciate that they took the care and time to like add these extra mechanics that they didn't need to really, but they wanted to make the game, you know, a lot more varied and an appeal to people who are in there for the less of the golf stuff. Because as much as I have enjoyed doing the golf stuff, I do have to admit that without the breaks and without the you know RPG elements and talking to characters and just figuring stuff out, it would have...
Variety of like worlds and stuff helps as well. Like, it just really mixes it up.
Great visual diversity, like lots of different quirky places you go to. And there's like, you know, there's things like side quests where you have to dig up hidden items in the ground and like exploring around places, stuff like that, which is great. It's just got a great variety overall, and is a much bigger and like richer game than I think I expected.
We thought it might be 8 to 10 hours, and it's looking at 20 minimum, which is
basically so yeah, I love it so far. I think maybe the RPG stuff is not like super crazy, and I actually am okay with that, because it's less that you're focusing on stats and upgrading equipment, because that stuff kind of comes naturally in the course of doing side quests and doing missions.
It's not like it's possible to create a player that with bad stats that will struggle in later missions, like you perhaps you could argue you could do in some RPGs. Like this, you can't really create a bad player with this, which is
right.
nice.
It's much more skill focused.
Yeah.
Obviously, your equipment and stats help, but it's about being okay at doing the golf stuff. And so far, like, I think the one competition I had, I was way ahead of everyone else. I finished at like 6 under, I think, and the next person had a score of 1, I think. So it was pretty easy from that perspective. Even for me, who's someone who doesn't really play these kind of games, I think they've pitched the difficulty well. Like, it's not over the top or anything. And yeah, it looks really nice, and the soundtrack is very chilled. I think it's been a really kind of laid back soundtrack. The thing that's really funny that I appreciate is every time you go for a putt on the green, it just suddenly cuts to this music that's like really intense. Like, basically
they even repeated that music when in a specific, maybe I shouldn't spoil this, but it's like a specific cut scene where your coach is, do I say this or not?
I don't know, go for it.
Sure, it's where the coach is like cooking dinner for like a group, and they repeat the putting intense music because he's really bad at cooking, and like he has to cook. So it's just like a nice little, that's a clever thing to do. Yeah,
it's so well made. It's really charming. I'm really enjoying it. It's a great game. It looks fantastic on the TV as well, because I started playing on the TV, and I've been switching to handheld here and there, but it's a great Switch game. It's perfect for like bite-sized pick-up-and-play chunks, essentially. Even if you're like in the middle of a 9-hole course, you can just put it down after 3 or 4 and then come back later.
It's super easy to pick up and play, but you can maybe say that about every Switch game ever.
Sure. It's kind of a cheat at this point, I guess. But yeah, any closing thoughts before we move on, Bally, on Golf Story?
Just that it's so nice when something you know nothing about and you only find out about maybe a few months ago comes along and really pleasantly surprises you, and is just, even in 2017, is looking like it could be one of the best games of the year. And that's really a great thing that like I wasn't expecting, and I look forward to the end of this game.
Yeah, it's definitely got a stiff competition. I'll say that for 2017, but I'm really enjoying it. I just think it's great fun, and it's also currently Switch exclusive, so that's pretty cool. And people, I'm sure, will be keeping on picking it up throughout the year. So next up, I am going to talk about No More Heroes 2: Desperate Struggle real quickly. I'm not going to say too much about it, but I wanted to finish this game because I believe I got it in like 2012, a secondhand game shop here, like in the UK. And after the announcement of Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes, I was like, I should really go back and finish No More Heroes 2, because I'd never played it. I remember beating the first one and really enjoying it. No More Heroes is a weird series because it's essentially a boss battle game, but it's broken up into, like, the first one's in an open world, and the open world doesn't really have much in it.
It's like third person, right?
It is, yeah. It's, you basically have this lightsaber and you're running around. Like, it's kind of an action game, not in the same style as a Bayonetta, but I guess it's that genre. The thing that makes it different is that boss battles feel much more like puzzles than anything else. I mean, there's definitely a lot of skill involved in them, but they have different phases they go through and that kind of thing, and they're often very memorable because they have these crazy cutscenes beforehand. And so, like, the original No More Heroes was 10. You're basically, the idea behind the series is you're going up this ranking of assassins and you're trying to become the number 1 ranked assassin. So you're trying to murder your way through the top 10 basically in the first game. And so the second game's like, okay, Travis is out of the game and he has to start again, but this time he has to start from number 50. It's like, oh Jesus, that sounds like a lot of people you have to kill. They do some clever things to make it not that many that you actually have to fight. There's maybe, I don't know, 15 fights total in the game, but it's way more streamlined than the first game. There's no open world anymore. It's much more of it's a menu basically that you pick from activities if you want to do side stuff, and if not, then you're just going basically to the main missions. I didn't do a lot of the side stuff, and it was mainly because they They were basically like mini games in a 16-bit style. Like there'd be like a mini Travis on the screen, and you have to do like these little tasks, and it was basically like little Super Nintendo like mini games. And I don't know, they didn't control very well. I was playing on the Pro controller, and they just, I mean, the Classic controller Pro. God damn it, Nintendo have too many fucking controllers in the last 3 years.
That thing is so old. Yeah, they've done one every generation now between like Wii U and now Switch. It's just
exactly,
they're all called similar things.
And none of those mini games ever felt good to me. Like there was a weird disconnect, and and as soon as I discovered that's basically what most of them were, I was like, I'm out. Because in the first game, there was some cool side stuff where, like, you'd be mowing a lawn and you'd actually be, like, rolling around, like, in 3D with Travis just mowing this fucking lawn, and it was just stupid and goofy. And I enjoyed kind of doing that stuff. But here, it was much more, like, off to the side. This game is much better enjoyed if you just mainline it, I found. And I'd put the difficulty down because I just wanted to basically blast through it. Because, honestly, the challenge in games like this is not what I come to them for. It's more the spectacle and the weirdness. And wow, No More Heroes 2 is so surprising. Like, there are so many weird fucking things it does that I didn't expect, and it really makes it stand out a lot from the first game. Because the first game is great because, you know, you have these crazy 10 characters you're going after to murder, but pretty much every level goes the same way, where you run through a bunch of different enemies, and then you fight the boss at the end. And the enemies are kind of just fodder. Like, they really exist just for no reason other than to pad things out. They're not difficult or challenging, and you will never die on them, basically. So they kind of just get in the way of the flow of the game. And here, they do still sometimes have that. Like, the last couple of fights have so many enemies they throw at you before you get there. But more often than not, it's like, okay, now I'm on a motorcycle and I'm riding down this road, and then I have to try and push this guy off a cliff in like a completely different style of game than I was playing. And also now I'm in a giant robot and we're having this mech battle across the city. And then I'm in a dream sequence where I'm a completely different character and I'm fighting a robot anime girl on this field. And there's just so much weird shit this game does that I was just constantly surprised by it. It just really threw me for a loop, and it made me want to continue going through and finishing it because I never knew what was going to happen next. Like, there's always something weird. Like, at one point you do play as a different character for a couple of missions, and you're able to jump, so it adds like this weird platforming element, which I will say is not very good. Like, the mechanics of the platforming are awful, like they don't work very well, but it was an interesting twist that I thought was something that it really lets me appreciate that Suda51 is just batshit insane, and the stuff he does is just really it's unlike what most people do in the games industry. And one thing I will say that just has aged so poorly is just the complete and utter objectification of every woman possible. It's awful. It's really bad. It's obviously incredibly cultural from Japan, and even you know, back in 2009 when this game came out, it's, you know, it's real bad, and the story beats in the way that, you know, basically Travis is doing this because he wants to sleep with the woman who organizes the competition, and that's basically the through line of the first game. It's basically the same thing here. Like, it's real bad. But that stuff aside, like, it's just fun. It's just a great fun time. And the thing I like about the combat system is whenever you like strike someone down before they're about to die, it goes into slow motion, and in the original, when you were playing with the Wii remote, you would like move the Wii remote in a certain direction to slice them to finish them off, and this game, if you play with the Classic controller, you basically use the two sticks to do that instead, so it's not quite as visceral. The one thing I did miss was there's no rumble in the Classic controller Pro, so there's a real great feeling when you like slicing someone up with the Wii remote, and I did play a little bit with the Wii remote. Actually, a really weird thing I did was I took my Wii U gamepad, brought it next door. Because the Wii U gamepad has a camera on it, it can track motion. So I was sitting here with my Wii remote and nunchuck playing on my Wii U gamepad, and it didn't work very well, suffice to say. The screen was way too small for me to play it properly. But it's weird that I can kind of do
that's a feature at all. Is just bizarre.
Yeah. The reason it exists though is because you can't play with the Wii U gamepad itself. You can only see the image displayed on the screen. Like the Wii mode can only be displayed on the gamepad. It can't be played with the controller, which is such a fucking bad thing that, it's so goddamn Nintendo, but that's what they were doing back then. They still do weird shit like that now, but it was a blast. I really enjoyed just going through it. It was only like 6 hours or so it took me to finish it, which was weird because How Long to Beat had it pegged at 9. So I think because I played through on easy, like I was just kind of breezing past a lot of stuff. But that was the best way for me to experience, honestly. Like I just enjoyed all the weird stuff around the edges. And I'm really interested to see what this new Switch game is going to be like, because the game hasn't aged particularly well. Like it's a little bit stiff in places. Like it doesn't feel as smooth as modern games do. But there's definitely some great stuff that you can do on the Switch, and I'm sure they're going to bring back motion with the Joy-Cons. Like it makes too much sense. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So No More Heroes 2, definitely a surprising one for me. Did not expect that game to stand out.
Hard to get a hold of these days, I bet.
I don't know. I think generally Wii games now are going more out of fashion in terms of old games shops like keeping them there, but it's not a Radiant Dawn is what I'll say. It's not a it's not a real rare Wii game. It's not a Lost Story basically, so I'm sure people can find it in places, and I don't think either of them have been released on the Wii U Virtual Console. Maybe they have and I missed it, but anyway, that's that. The other thing before we move on to our big Metroid discussion is I got the Super Nintendo Classic. It came in the mail on Friday.
How on earth did you get one, NBZ? Oh yeah, you're European.
I know, crazy. Yeah. Fortunately, we live in a country where no one gives a shit about Nintendo, as we've mentioned many times before. Although, having said that,
I'm getting mine tomorrow, hopefully. So I'm in the dark on this.
So yeah, hopefully more people will be able to get them, because I was seeing stuff across America of people being like, yeah, these stores are getting way more than they got of Switches or NES Classics. So I think people are going to be okay in finding them. I'm sure there'll still be horror stories, as there always are, but Nintendo seems to have done a better job. Anyway, Super Nintendo Classic is really cool. It's just very small, very, very small in a way that is almost
do you like it
surprising
as a collector to have all those games, or do you like it as, wow, I'm going to be able to play all these games with like an original mold controller, or what's the bit you're liking the most?
I think the entire experience is the thing I like the most. Because honestly, like a lot of these games, not that I've played them all, but I know a lot about most of them. I have watched playthroughs of a lot of them. I'm familiar with these games pretty well for the most part. And the ones I'm not are the ones that I'm focusing on playing for the first time and going through, obviously. But the controller is really cool. It's something that I've never really played with before, because neither of us owned a Super Nintendo, which I'm sure for people listening to this show, a lot of them is like sacrilege. Like, how did we never touch a Super Nintendo before? But it's a really solid controller. It feels really good in the hand. Like the buttons are nice and big. It's old, obviously, but I still think it works today. Like it's fine. It's definitely a really solid controller. And some people are complaining that it's kind of rough in terms of like the plastic. It's not like as smooth as the old ones were. I think maybe they used a different mold or something, but people seem to think, and I remember us having this conversation beforehand where you, Bally, were like, yeah, it's going to be just the same as the original Super Nintendo controller, right? And I was like, no, they must change it. But apparently you're right, it's pretty much the same as the old Super Nintendo controller. So I guess this is what it felt like for people back in the 90s.
Apart from that sheen of plastic, like you said. But yeah, I believe the original mold was basically the same.
And I'm also glad I live in the UK, because it means I have the nice coloured buttons, as opposed to the weird purple ones that the US got. And honestly, like the Famicom design, the Super Famicom design is much nicer. Just the box itself is way more sleek. The reset button is a press instead of a slide. Like, there's a lot of things about the UK version of this that I'm way happier that I have this one as opposed to the American one, is what I'll say.
Right.
And a lot of that's superficial because it's colours. You're not looking at your controller when you're playing the game, but it's nice to look at, right? Like in your entertainment setup, it looks good. So that's been positive.
Have you played with like the wooden background yet?
Yeah, so there's lots of different perspectives you can use. You can have like a CRT filter, you can go pixel perfect, which basically shrinks it to like a square box as opposed to more rectangular, or you can just go, with the rectangle, a 4x3, and then you have backgrounds that you can put behind all of them, which is great. I have been using the woodblock one most of the time, but overall, in terms of presentation, it's just really nice. It's smooth. It's easy to get from game to game. I think the biggest complaint, obviously, and most people will have this, is one, the cord length is still too short. I have to sit closer to the TV than I would like. But in a way, that kind of is good. And the reason why is because it gives you that kind of nostalgic feeling of sitting on the floor playing a game system when you were younger. Like, I remember in particular one birthday party I had where there were 4 of us sitting on like cushions in front of my GameCube playing Mario Party. Like, it kind of recalls memories of those times with wired controllers, like sitting closer to the TV than you usually would, and kind of wrapping yourself up in a game, and booting up Super Metroid and playing through the first part of that and just sitting on the floor. It just felt right, it just felt super cool, and I'm glad that I get to have this experience even though I didn't play a Super Nintendo back in the day. Like, it's just a neat thing altogether, and I really like that about it.
And there's like 3 save states per game. Have you tried?
There are 4 save states.
4 save states. And and like a rewind feature, has that felt good?
Yeah, I haven't used the rewind feature. I've seen people use it. It seems a little clumsy. Obviously, you have to get up and press the button every time you want to do that, and that's the other big problem, is if you want to save state, you have to physically move and do that, which to some degree is cool because it means I'm not like relying on save states in the way I used to. Like, I think sometimes I can strip an experience out of a game by constantly, when I was playing on my Wii U gamepad, tapping the screen and just saving every single goddamn second, and it's nice to maybe relax a bit from that and not do it, because I started Super Metroid and Link to the Past, and I've been playing through the start of those games again, and I'm being much more chilled about it and like exploring more, and just knowing these games a bit better allows me to be less under the pressure of playing them to talk about on the show and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've died a couple times in Link to the Past already because I'm just not great at that game. But I already found like a mini challenge in Link to the Past that got me a heart piece that I'd never seen in the game before. Because when I first played it, it was to talk about on the show, and I was mainlining the dungeons, right? I just wasn't going around and maybe experiencing that game like people would back in the day. And so I think it's been nice on that front, and just not relying on save states too much. It's just... yeah, it's been good. I think, for one thing, the emulation is so much better than the Wii U. It is unreal how crisp and bright and colourful everything looks. It's never looked better on an HD TV, and I really hope Nintendo are using similar emulation on the Switch if they get around to goddamn Virtual Console there. But it's crisp, it feels good. Super Metroid still is not as great a controlling game, but I still enjoy going through it, and the same with Link to the Past. It's been good fun, but the thing that was really surprising to me was I tried to play a bit of 2-player with my dad, because I roped him in. I was like, okay, I need to talk about this on my podcast, so you got to play some 2-player with me to get that feel. And so we played a round of Street Fighter 2, which neither of us know what the hell we're doing, so that was great. Just mashing buttons. I think he beat me because he just mashed buttons. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing anyway. So that wasn't great. Then we tried Contra 3, and he had no idea what he was doing. It's a nightmare, that game. There's so much shit flying around the screen. You're shooting people. It's bad. And then there's Mario Kart, which conceptually he gets, but also that game is super loose and slimy.
Hard,
and
yeah.
It's difficult to get around corners. So basically what we surmised was we should play something that doesn't require Twitch input or control.
Where's the pinball?
Basically, where is the thing that has 2 buttons I can get my head around? And what we landed on was Kirby's Dream Course, which is a game that I didn't know a huge amount about. I think I'd played a little bit of it because back on Wii U, there was a demo system with amiibos, where if you put an amiibo on it, you would get like a 30-second demo of a Virtual Console game. I have no idea what that was called, but that was fucking weird. I got Kirby Dream Course in that, so I'd played it maybe for a minute total in my life previously. But Kirby's Dream Course, as I was alluding to previously, is basically a golf game. So
we know NBZ now loves golf games.
Absolutely, yeah. So not only do you have Golf Story, you have this Dream Course that I was playing with my dad. You also have the fact that NES Golf was discovered in the Switch, and it was the Iwata thing. So a lot of golf going on right now is what I'm saying in my life. And it's a really cool game. I really enjoyed it. It's basically, you're going through 9 holes, and because you're playing as Kirby, it's got these different dimensions to it. Like, there are power-ups and stuff which we didn't quite figure out how to use, but the idea is you're killing all the enemies on the map by rolling into them, and the last enemy, or the second to last enemy that you kill, forces the last enemy to turn into the hole. So the hole is variable. The hole is never in the same place at once. So once you've cleared out the enemies, you then go for the hole, and you can also, lose health. You have a health bar. So if you knock yourself into your opponent, they lose health. They may get stunned for a turn. If they go out of bounds, they lose more health. You can skip turns by losing health, essentially. And so it's this back and forth of scoring points. So you score points for killing enemies, going through them, getting stars, and you score points for hitting your opponent, stuff like that. And so we just played and figured it out, and it's basically the same system where you have the bar and you press it at its most powerful, whatever, that kind of thing. There's also moments, I think, depending on the type of shot you do, where you can put spin on the ball as well, or on Kirby, should I say. It's not a ball, it's literally you're hitting Kirby. And it was great fun. It was really interesting because we were pretty evenly matched, and I was slightly ahead on the last hole. And on the last hole, my dad makes this crazy shot, across the map, goes perfectly and nails it into the hole. And that basically leaves us at a draw. So we drew 22-22 at the end. Oh, nice. Which was great. It was really funny. And so, yeah, that was awesome.
So it's a really great experience that just came out of nowhere, all because you had this collection of games that you experienced before.
Yeah, and it's the other thing I really like about it is how easy it is to just bounce between games, just jumping from the menu from one to the other and just going in and picking up where you were. It's a really smooth experience, and I think that's the thing I like about it, as opposed to having them on a 3DS or on a Switch, is you have to close down the thing and open up the thing, close down the thing and open up the thing if you want to switch between games. Whereas here, it's just way smoother because you're just jumping from save state to save state, essentially, when you shut it down. So it's been fantastic. The other game I've been playing, I've almost finished a first run-through of the original Star Fox, and we can maybe talk more about it next time, but I think this is my favourite Star Fox game. It's really cool. It's really cool, Bally. That's the thing. Yes, it's janky. Yes, the frame rate is god-awful, but oh my god, they fucking went for it. This is so incredibly ambitious for a game that I thought was just going to be, and it is on rails for most of it.
It's not janky ass to the point where you're like, oh, Star Fox, original Star Fox, I'm going to put this down.
No.
It's this is interesting.
No, absolutely not. It's hard to see stuff a lot of the time, and getting your bullets and figuring out who's the enemy and who are your teammates and not accidentally shooting them and stuff like that can be tricky. But there's a whole mission in this game where you're basically fighting this armada, and it is incredibly ambitious and crazy, where you have these huge battleships going past, and you're shooting them as you fly past them. It feels like Star Wars, and then sometimes you infiltrate inside of a ship, and you're doing a trench run, up and down, dodging things, getting to the center, blowing up the center, bursting out, and it explodes behind you, and then you're going to the next one and taking them all down, and eventually the music cuts out, and you get to this giant ship at the end, and you go inside, and you go through these corridors, and it almost cuts to this cut scene where you're going behind the camera and upside down around corners, and you get to the boss room, and you're just facing off against this central boss. It's really epic for a game that is literally not real 3D. It's basically faking it, and yet it is so incredibly cool to look at and play. I've loved it.
And you tried a bit of Star Fox 2?
No, not yet. I've unlocked it because you have to just beat the first mission of Star Fox to do that. But I want to finish Star Fox 1. I actually really like this game, so I'm going to go through all the different paths and see all of those. And yeah, it's so cool. I did not expect it.
Is it making you want to retry the other Star Fox games?
Maybe. I don't know, Bally. We'll see. But I think the reason I like this so much is because I didn't expect it to be anything more than just Star Fox, and I think it's way more ambitious than I gave it credit for. And it's surprising me.
It's easy to think why you might think it's just a worse version of the 64 version, which you just did not like. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also more simplified, right? There's no dogfight situations in this game, so it's definitely it's adhering more to what I want from a game of this style. Okay, so with that, let's talk about Metroid Samus Returns, because we've both now I've 100%ed it. You've finished the game, finally.
I've beaten it. I might 100% it before the end of the year, but not for now.
And you took your time with it. You took definitely a lot longer than I did to finish the game.
Oh god! In activity log terms, it took me 22 hours, which is just insane.
Crazy. It took me 17 hours to 100% it. So
right, I really struggled with some of the later bosses, which we can talk about in a bit.
Yeah, but, we're gonna go into spoilers in a little bit, and I'll signal that. I'll also put in the description a timestamp that you can skip to if you don't want to hear spoilers when we go into spoilers. So rest assured, if you haven't finished the game yet.
For now, no spoilers, just overall thoughts.
Yeah.
NBZ. Well, have we heard your overall thoughts? So shall I just jump in?
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think the game is fantastic. I think there's a lot of like little things that annoy me about it. One of the things was I was mentioning a section that was about being quick, and I know you've played that now, so we can kind of maybe talk about it broadly, is I think this game is bad when it tries to subvert what it does well, which is using the morph ball in a speed situation is never a good idea, and I don't know why they made that choice. That's something that I was confused about. But the one thing I think I need to point out most of all is the checkpointing system is the best part about this game in terms of modernization. Like, there are two modernizations I love: the warping, which is necessary because the game is so large, and the checkpointing, because the checkpointing allows them to make boss fights really, really difficult and not cause frustration because you're sent back to a save room. There's a particular boss in Metroid Fusion who's this big spider, and I remember getting hung up on him a bunch when I was younger because it's not only that he's hard to fight, but you go back to your ship as your most recent save point, and there's a pretty lengthy sequence, not like overly long, but at least 5 minutes to go through and kill a bunch of space pirates and get back to where he is. So that's something that I think that boss would have been better received in this game, because you would just reload and have another crack at it. And because of that, you're constantly learning the patterns and figuring things out. So it allows them to be a bit cheeky with it and be like, no, we're going to do this and make it a bit tougher.
I'm just so pleasantly surprised by this game overall. It's so much better than I thought it was going to be. It's a really nice surprise how much this game just feels like Prime, mainly in its sound and look. And this game, because of its sound and look, is ultimately unique amongst 2D Metroids. It's the only non-sprite based 2D Metroid, which makes it unique, and I love that. And this is potentially maybe one of my favorites. I find it really hard to talk about the 4 2D Metroids that I love, because
it's tough.
I can't really pick between the 4 of them. They all have massive ups, and a few of them have some downs. This game has its downs. I agree with you. Speed sections and the morph ball. The morph ball generally feels quite slow to get to, which isn't nice.
It's bad because of the circle pad mainly.
Yeah, and it's sad because what this game does have, which the other 3 sprite-based 2D Metroids don't have, is that spider ball, which is just so great. Obviously, Metroid 2 has it because it's a remake of that game, but I don't really rate that game. Not that I've tried it, and maybe I should one day, but the spider ball just is such a great exploration tool that changes up the pace. Like, Metroid's all about changing of pace, from getting into rooms, fighting enemies, and then you're clearing out rooms, and then slowing it down and exploring and using your bombs, looking for areas that you can, little nooks and crannies you can get to get upgrades and stuff. And this game is so good at that. Like, between using what do you even call it, the scan pulse, is that the name?
Yeah, the scan pulse.
Yeah, it's just so useful for like working out where things are, and that combined with the spider ball is so nice. Like, it's the fact that it's been 13 years since the 2D Metroid. I think that, yes, it's a shame on 3DS. We would have loved it on Switch, but maybe it wouldn't have evoked Prime so much had it been on Switch, as weird as that sounds, because this graphical style is so GameCube in a way that it's just very like pleasing in a really unexpected way for me personally.
I am glad that we got a 3DS Metroid eventually, or at least like in the era of two-screen Nintendo handhelds that we got one, because
the map works great.
Yeah, the second screen is calling out for that stuff. Like, it's been so needed for such a long time, and it made my retraversal of areas and exploring of areas so much more efficient, because you can constantly see places and where they are. And I made pretty liberal use of the stamp system, where you can put down color-coded triangles, essentially, to be like, okay, this is in this area, and I can come back for this. Ultimately, I didn't really use them that much, because what I figured out about myself and the way I play Metroid games, and especially this game compared with Fusion, because I think there's good comparisons to be drawn, is for both these games, it's much more about linearity and going through and clearing an area and then moving on to the next one. And then at the very end of the game, coming back and cleaning everything up, right? And just going through and collecting everything. So from that perspective, I didn't do as much like quote unquote backtracking during the game, which I think that's why you took so long, is because you told me you were doing that, like going back to older areas once you got an upgrade.
I mean, I was still at Game's End, I'd only done 60% of items, so like I've still got loads more that I can go back later and get, but I certainly needed those items as I got later into the game. I needed more missiles and stuff like that we can talk about when we spoil.
Yeah, so the map was just incredibly useful to have, and the one thing that I do like it for is there's this one place in Metroid Fusion in Sector 2 where the door is destroyed, basically, and you can't get through it no matter what. But the map doesn't mark that it's destroyed. It just shows as if it's an open passageway. And so I always, no matter how many times I played through this game, I always get to that point trying to backtrack through, and I'm like, okay, there's an upgrade there, I need to go that way. And I can never get back through the way I want to, because it's blocked, like it's 100% blocked. And I wish there was better indication on the screen for that stuff. And I think Metroid Samus Returns does a great job with this, because not only does it allow you to place your own markers for stuff like that, because there's this one area, I can't remember where it is, but you fall through a floor, like it's one of those floors that you just, there's no actual thing there, it just disappears beneath you, and you can't get back up. I can just put a red triangle there and be like, okay, that spot I can't go through that way, so I need to, like, it's a nice reminder for if I go back there that that's going to happen. And it also does the thing where it color codes places. So power bomb doors, for example, are yellow, and they will be colored yellow on the map. That's so convenient. It's important.
And there's like a key that you can check any time that will list all those anyway, which is
exactly
useful.
Yeah. So that was, I think, above most other things in this game in terms of modernizing it. Like the wall point, great. The checkpoint, great. The map, really, really crucial, and was, it's something that makes going back through this game a much easier task. And that's important, because a Metroid game, I think for me, lives and dies by the ability to retraverse areas and figure out where you've been.
Yeah.
And right now, playing through a bit of Super Metroid, it reminds me that game needs more refinements in terms of, I love the coding that was introduced in Fusion, where if you're in a room and there's an item, it will be a hollow circle, but if you're in a room where you've collected the item, it turns into a small square. And in Super Metroid, it doesn't even show you the hollow circle, so you don't know if there's an item in the room you're in. It makes it much harder, basically, to get 100% in that game and to explore it again. So yeah, it made me appreciate that stuff for sure.
Shall we spoil?
I guess so. So at this point, if you do not want to hear anything like in depth about Samus Returns, its ending, all the other crazy boss things,
and we're going right to the ending, right through the whole game, everything.
Yeah.
So you've been warned.
Yeah, so turn away now, go to the description, skip, or whatever, or just sit here and listen to us if you don't care. All right, so I think the end of the game is surprising. I think we should start there, because it throws in an extra boss fight that wasn't there in the original, and it's not there in AM2R either, because Ridley shows up.
Did you know about this at all before getting there, or did you manage to avoid everything on the internet and you made it and you were like, wow, here we go?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't know. I think maybe someone had said something about like there being something else after the normal final boss.
I mean, it feels at that point before you fight Ridley that something is coming, because you're like, oh, is that I've beaten Queen Metroid. Here we go.
Yeah.
Back to the ship. It's like,
see, it wasn't as weird for me because I've played AM2R, so I know that's how that game ends. Like, I know that you just go back through and get back to the ship. So I was just expecting to get...
Does it feel weird in AM2R just going back to the ship without anything happening, or...
No, and I think, it's interesting because we just recently watched a video by Mark Brown on this topic, who we bring up all the goddamn time, but he's very,
Make sure
very
to
smart.
check him out, by the way, if you haven't yet. Just cannot recommend him highly enough.
I think he nailed why it works in both Metroid 2 and in AM2R is because the music is this very light, very, kind of cathartic soundtrack that goes along with this area you're moving through that has no enemies in it, right? So it very much feels like a kind of come down after this grand fight. And in Samus Returns, you're fighting enemies still after you beat the Queen Metroid, and the music is much more synthy and
yeah, it's the same
upbeat.
tune, but they just pump it up a lot.
Yeah, they pump it up, so it doesn't feel as in the same way. So it definitely doesn't evoke the same idea, but I guess the idea there was you're not done yet because there's another boss fight to come, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, I found Ridley the toughest out of all these fights. It's just a very quick fight, and I eventually realized I need to use the Aeon power to kill him fast in order to get through these phases, because otherwise it's going to take forever.
I mean, you can, but that only lasts for all of 5 seconds.
Yeah, but it definitely speeds things up. Like, it gets
Perhaps.
you through the phases faster. I found myself, like, in the first phase, the first time I beat the first phase, being like, oh my god, that was tough. And then I'm like, oh no, there's another one. And then when I got past the second one, I was like, oh, there's a third one. And then, like, there's even, like, a fourth one, because the Metroid tries stealing health and does a mini cutscene, and then you're like, oh, you're still not dead? Like, Jesus, it's kind of an intense struggle for survival there.
The thing about it is, it's not actually a hard boss fight. It's a marathon of intensity that was just killer on my thumb. It was like,
you need to be concentrating a lot.
Right, so fight. Like between the 3 toughest bosses in this game are easily like the mining robot you fight eventually. Yeah. Obviously Queen Metroid and Ridley. The mining robot, very low intensity on the thumbs, but just really needed to be super precise about patterns, etc., etc. Whereas Queen Metroid I actually found the easiest out of the 3 of them. I didn't even bomb the stomach. We can get onto that. But basically, I just found that I could like get into Morph Ball, I could get into cubby holes and avoid like attacks and essentially missile her mouth. But Ridley was just this intense, long marathon, and I did like it. It's a good ending to the game, and it's like adding Ridley to the game is fantastic. I love it, but we've not talked about the downside of the circle pad yet. And while I absolutely love like standing on the spot and shooting, the circle pad when you're needing to aim up at Ridley, like at 45 degrees, it's absolutely exhausting. And it's the fact that 45 degree angle that you need when fighting Ridley, that in previous games you can just hold a shoulder button without the circle pad, obviously.
Yeah.
It's like if there was just some other button that gave you the option of that 45 degree angle, at least just for this final boss fight, it would have made my thumb feel better.
I don't know. I didn't find myself using that too much, because on the second phase he's on the ground, and then other phases he's like floating up in the air, and I was kind of next to him doing stuff. I was moving around a lot during that fight, so I didn't feel like I was crutching on it too much. But it's tough, and I think it's cool that they've added it. Again, like, I don't think it necessarily fits with the game. It kind of feels fan servicey in a way. Like
a little, yeah.
I get it, but it's cool.
We didn't put him in Smash, but here he is at the end of this remake.
Yeah, and I think there might be a counter that he does as well, though I never figured out how to do it.
Yeah,
it's definitely. I counted pretty much every other enemy in the game, but I don't think I ever figured out if Ridley had one. I was thinking about it. I was like, no, I just need to kill this guy. He's just taking way too long. So that's what I did.
I died an absolute tongue on those 3 bosses I described. Like,
so the thing about the digging robot was it's the one time in the game I had to look something up. because it's not super clear on that last final phase when he puts out his head and it's electricity on and off, that you have to stick to him and then bomb those 3 little things, you know? Like, that's the sort of thing where I'm like,
Oh, I got that.
Yeah, I didn't figure that out at all.
What I kept mucking up with that bit is if you get greedy and try to do 2, you like automatically take damage. Like it's like it butts you off, you take damage, and by that point I was often really low on health, and I had 1 more point to bomb for him before he died, and like I died on that point like maybe once or twice, and it was just infuriating. Like it was.
But I do really like him
tough.
From a design perspective, because it's all about figuring puzzles out. Like it felt almost like a Minish Cap boss to some degree. Where
it really
going
did.
Inside and like the one other part was like him sucking in at the end. I was like, what do I do here? Like that's a little bit confusing because I tried shooting missiles and it seemed like the missiles went into his mouth and did nothing. So like it being bombs was strange.
And God, if you get caught in like that suck and Samus gets into you take so much damage.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
It's so really brutal.
It's the same as when like Ridley, if he like pins you against the wall, that's really dangerous.
Yeah, it's like a cutscene just to
basically
show how much Samus is getting killed.
Yeah, essentially just like look at this character getting
I was like, maybe this is meant to be part of it. Maybe I've done it, and it's like, nope, I'm dead.
Yeah, I almost thought because of the thing with the Queen Metroid going inside of her is it's something that you do in the original Metroid 2 and in AM2R. Also, it's in Other M. The final boss of Other M is a Queen Metroid, and in Other M, it is awfully signaled to you that that's what you're supposed to do. Like, fucking terrible. And so I was really confused when that was happening in that game, but what it did teach me is, hey, you can go inside as the Morph Ball inside Queen Metroids. Like, that's just knowledge that I have from playing other Metroid games.
I've just never had that knowledge.
Exactly. So
and I beat this game and still didn't have that knowledge, and then I spoke to you.
Yep, this is crazy. But that's why I thought maybe going into the Morph Ball and getting sucked inside the Digger Robot might help, because that's been done in other Metroid games, right? Where you go inside as a Morph Ball. Another really interesting thing that you can do is if you just stick to the ground with the Spider Ball while he's going around with the wind, he won't suck you in. The Spider Ball keeps you there.
Yeah, that's what I did.
What really?
Else did you do?
See, I never knew you did that. Like, I listened to people talking about it afterwards, and they're like, "Oh yeah, so I used the sticky spider ball." And I was like, "What the fuck, really, man?" Like, I had no idea.
How did you avoid damage on that? Did you just run in the other direction?
I basically I led it, so I like went into Morph Ball and then like popped bombs very quickly as it was about to go, and then just jumped out of Morph Ball and didn't get hit. So yeah, just being a bit more dexterous with it. But yeah, it's cool stuff with like going on the claws, like sticking up the claws and going inside there and bombing. Like, it's a clever fight. And honestly, the most frustrating part of the Digger Robot is the speedrun area where you are using the grapple beam and using the Morph Ball and trying to get quickly through. The first couple of times you do it, I think are fine. The third one is a fucking nightmare. It's so poorly designed.
Yeah.
And the thing that I only discovered later was if you point at a grapple point, even if you don't have the grapple beam equipped, it will switch automatically to the grapple point. And I didn't know that for the longest time in this game.
I didn't really like it that much because it felt like you had to be quite precise. So I'd rather be in grapple beam. I felt like while you were in grapple beam, you could be less precise and you would still grapple. So I didn't actually think it helped that much.
Okay, well, the thing was, I was doing this thing where I'm running, also trying to tap the touchscreen at like moments where I had a breath to take in order to switch to grapple beam in order to get it going. It's awful. It's such bad game design where like this game, in terms of switching between things, is a fucking nightmare. Switching to the freeze beam or the grapple beam at any point in time while you're in the midst of a fight is so difficult to pull off. And that's why I don't like the tap touchscreen for Morph Ball thing either, because if you want to move into a Morph Ball, you want to do it fast and fluid, but you have to tap the side of the screen that the circle pad is on, so you can't move and tap the screen to go into Morph Ball at the same time, essentially. So you'd have to like bring your other thumb all the way over, because otherwise you're tapping one of the beams at the same time. It's just a mess. Like, that stuff I think is really bad. Like, that's the worst stuff about this game, is like the finicky stuff, like that one enemy at the start where you have to freeze him and then shoot the missile blocks above you and then jump, but he doesn't stay frozen long enough, and the missile blocks disappear quickly as well. Like, that kind of irked me a lot. Like, little game design decisions like that just weren't well thought through. and those were by far the worst parts of the
There
game.
became like a few upgrades that became speed trials just based on a block reforming, and it was like, oh come on, I've like sussed out where it is. This isn't fun. Like, let's just get this upgrade and move on.
Right, absolutely. So yeah, that stuff isn't great, but I enjoyed a lot of the late game upgrades. Just being able to screw attack through everything is so much fun in every Metroid game, and just getting to that power level is awesome.
How do you feel about Samus turning into Bayonetta during some of those melee counters on the later Metroids?
That is the most Other M thing about this game by far.
I quite liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it looked great in 3D, especially like against the Omega Metroid. Like the flips she does against that dude are crazy.
Are they the ones that like a dinosaur or like an alien?
Dinosaur, the final phase. The Omega Metroid is the final boss of Metroid Fusion, if you remember. When you get back to your ship, you fight one. And in this game, you fight like 4 of them. So it's kind of like throwing down a challenge. Like, this was the final boss of a game.
I love those fights. I love the melee counter. I love the Bayonetta stuff she pulls off. I think the design of the alien-style Metroids, the one before Omega... Gamma? I'm just guessing.
I think they're Gamma. No, I think they're Zeta. I think Gamma are the ones that fly around. Zeta are the ones that...
they look so cool. They're obviously a complete copy of Aliens from Alien, but
basically
they just look so cool. I just love it.
I like the mechanics in that fight where you do use the grapple beam to bring them down from the ceiling. Like, that's a neat thing.
I didn't do that.
Are you kidding me?
No, I just waited for it to come down.
There's a lot of stuff in this game which is like optional almost in terms of like mechanics and stuff. Because if you notice, when he hangs on the ceiling, a red thing glows on his back. And so it's the same color as grapple points, basically.
I just assumed that was like a missile point, but every time I missiled it, it obviously wouldn't work. So I'm surprised I didn't suss that. Yeah,
it's an interesting trade-off because you have to stand still for a little while all of his like orbs are flowing around the room. So, you're kind of like at the mercy of those a little bit. Yeah, but if you get yourself in a good position, you can just yank him down and then just get a bunch of shots in the stomach.
I know some people have said the Metroid fights are a bit repetitive. I loved them. Like, I felt really accomplished and powerful during those fights that once I'd learned like how to defeat them. And all these boss fights, once you learn,
you start getting really good at the fight.
It just feels like a dance eventually. Like, you're just these boss fights, you really feel on top. But once you learn the phases and how to counter those phases, you just feel really like a really great gamer. And like, that's a nice feeling that this game evokes 40 times like consistently, which is quite nice.
The one thing I will say, my least favorite part of the Gamma Metroids, not only because they are really finicky in terms of their patterns and like the small window for countering them
when they move rooms,
but the ones that move rooms are really annoying.
That's just like, what is the point?
It's just padding that didn't need to be in there, it just unnecessary. And like, it's a cool 3D effect when they like fly in from the background and stuff, but
that's true.
It's not a good design decision, I think.
I liked it when they were like hidden and you had to like bomb away a space, and they're like, oh shit, there's like a Gamma Metroid there, and then it would like come through. Like, that
scurry
was cool,
away,
but, right. But the whole, I'm just gonna scurry into another room. It's like, oh, get on with it.
It's like, do you really have to go to 3 separate rooms to do this fight? Like, it just, that stuff I really wish they'd cut. And honestly, like, generally having fewer fights with Metroids may have been better in the early game, because I think you do get bored of those earlier ones, especially because they do throw in some alphas even while you're still fighting some gammas. Late game, I think the final 2 forms are by far the most fun to fight. Like, they are really intense.
They're great.
And they work very well, for sure.
Shall we get on to plot and some of like the little hinty things that this game left at the end?
It's interesting because like if you get 100%, you unlock a bunch of artwork that shows you kind of history of like the Chozo and what they were doing there.
I like looked these up straight away when I finished because of that X-Parasite post-cut scene. I was just like...
Oh, right, yeah, because the game ends with an X-Parasite tease. It's great because it's like the exact same enemy as in Fusion. It's awesome.
So I saw the panels you unlock with 100% and like I was like, these are awesome. Like, this story is so good, and I'm just fascinated where it could go next.
Yeah, it's basically the idea that the Chozo created the Metroids to deal with the threat of the X-Parasites, and then eventually the Metroids evolved and got out of control, and so they basically... The story conceit for why you're going deeper into the planet and getting this DNA is that the Chozo basically locked off the planet with this lava, this purple water, whatever, so that no one could revisit to kind of lock the Metroids down there as they escaped. And then there's like this one scene of them about to leave the planet, and then there's it's a really weird fucking effect that happens when you unlock it in the actual game, because it like fuzzes the screen and does this weird shit, and then it's like this dark red like image of like this army of Chozo, and seems to be like some evil Chozo faction that are going off to make more Metroids essentially. And it's cool as a story conceit because there has never been a living Chozo in a Metroid game that you've ever met. So I'm excited for what they do next. I hope it's a new game and not like a remake of Fusion like they originally had pitched, or Mercury Steam had originally pitched to Nintendo.
I mean, it could be linked to Prime 4 in some way. We have no idea, but like there's options. Like there's stuff going forward where we know Prime 4 is coming, and now they're implying that there will eventually be another 2D Metroid on Switch, presumably. Like
and I think this game did well enough to where they probably will do another one.
Right, and it's so satisfying because Zelda is just this. The way they all link together is just such a mess, and like there's the timelines, there's 3 different timelines, there's a split timeline, there's all these things. They're like, where does Breath of the Wild fit? How does this fit? It's like, we know exactly where this game fits, obviously because it's a remake, but we also know where the other Metroids fit pretty much perfectly, so that there are these clear points at which we know that they can create games to fit into those spaces. And I just love that it does all link together, and the lore behind stuff like the Chozo. And I really love this about the Prime games, where they talk a lot about the Chozo. It's really interesting, and it's done really well, including in this game. I think it's nice.
Yeah, and this game doesn't really have much narrative of its own. Like, there's no dialogue or text boxes or anything. It's all very visual, and even the end with the baby Metroid, like it tells a narrative without needing that stuff. And I think Metroid does that well. I don't think you need like crazy cutscenes like in Other M, and there's even voice acting in Corruption as well. So
I'm looking forward to that.
It's interesting, but honestly, like, Metroid works best without that stuff, and I think they did a good job in this game of communicating all that. Like, I really loved that Queen Metroid fight. I think that's my favorite fight in the game. I think it was probably one of my favorite things about AM2R as well, but just the thing that happens there is the same thing that happens with the Zeta Metroids with the grapple hook, and I think you realize that because you pulled the head down to the ground, but you never tried going inside, it's really interesting because the first time I went inside in the Morph Ball, I realized that I was taking damage because I died while I was inside the stomach and nothing was happening to me. I was like, oh my god, I'm being hurt by like the juices of the inside of this Metroid. So what I then had to do was turn on the Aeon power that grants you invincibility, go into Morph Ball, then go inside and blow a power bomb inside her stomach. And what I'll say is, like, the 3D effect of going inside, rolling up through her neck and into the stomach is the best in the game. It looks so damn good.
I think generally it looks nice, like the 3D in this game, and that's another thing that makes this 2D Metroid unique, is that it's in 3D. Like, it just works with that art style, and it's going to be really sorely missed with the 3DS, because this, like so many recent 3DS games that have come out, like games like Pokemon, and there's plenty others coming that have confirmed
Dragon Quest 8 that I played earlier this year,
that don't have 3D, and it's like, hello, this is the 3DS, it's going to die soon, you might as well use it, do what it's good at, The
one thing I was thinking while playing the Octopath Traveler demo was, man, I wish the Switch had stereoscopic 3D, because this would look incredible
it really
with that.
Would.
Yeah,
so maybe this is the final send-off to 3D on the 3DS, and you know what? It's a pretty fitting one if it does end up being that.
Definitely.
This game really surprised me, and I love all the lore. I loved the gameplay, the bosses, the art, the music. It really did come together, apart from a few hand cramps. I think that it's a few hand cramps, a few dodgy Morph Ball sections. Otherwise, it's a fairly flawless 2D Metroid.
Yeah, it's again, like, just from a design perspective, the winding corridors, and like it's not overlapping in terms of the areas, but I think the areas themselves are very well designed in terms of re-exploring them and going back through them.
Fleshed out. It's like, oh, I'm in this really lush green area.
It feels very Metroid,
Yeah.
It feels exactly what you would expect from this type of game. And I think now that we have Mercury Steam, like, having done this project, I think Nintendo now have another studio that they can shepherd and make better and help them improve. And already this game is great, but I think they can do things better for the next one, and I think that they probably will get another shot at it.
Yeah,
honestly.
Let's make one on Switch. Let's fix that morph ball issue, and who knows?
Let me play this game with a D-pad, please. Give me an option, for God's sake. That would be nice.
Not that D-pad Joy-Con first, but okay.
Anyway, it's probably the longest what we've been playing segment we've ever done. Jesus. But
that's just what happens in the era of where we are now.
I know.
There's just so much good stuff. Like,
not only good stuff,
nowhere.
but also I'm going back and playing fucking No More Heroes 2 for some reason, and that's surprising me as well. So, lots of stuff happening. That's going to close us out for this segment. But don't go nowhere. We'll come back with the second half of the show in a little bit. Alright folks, welcome back to the second half of the show, wherein we are going to be discussing the Nintendo Switch. Yes, I know, we haven't talked about it enough. It's just time to talk about the Nintendo Switch finally.
State of play, a step back.
We're going to kind of just go over the last 6 months of Switch, what's happened, how Nintendo have done bad things, they've done good things, and what we think is going to happen next year, and stuff like that. So kind of maybe a state of, the situation that the Switch finds itself in. And I don't know if we're going to rate anything, like, on a scale, but just have a chat about it, basically, and see what's going on. So let's kick things off with, how it was revealed in the launch, which was actually almost a year ago.
October
at the time
20th,
of recording this.
2016.
Yeah. A trailer that I thought was exceptionally executed on almost every front. I think the thing that puts into perspective why the Switch succeeded so well was this first impression. This idea of the console that you can take with you, that goes everywhere, that is basically the single selling point, and it's the thing that has made the system a real success, just generally. I don't know, I think this trailer launched Nintendo back into a good marketing campaign since the Wii U's nightmare of one. I don't know, have you felt like they have done well on the advertising front since Switch launched?
Since that trailer, there was sort of a more negative press conference in that Japanese press conference where they reviewed 1-2 Switch, and then it was like, whoa, where are you going with this? What is going on? Like, the initial trailer nailed the concept well, and I think it was important that they did it in that order, and that it wasn't the Japan conference first and then this trailer, because the trailer really cemented in people's minds, and I want to say mainstream's minds, because it was going quite mainstream at the time with about 20 million views, what the Switch does, which is that concept you just said, Nbz, which is taking games on the go and playing home console games, like taking your home console games on the go, essentially. Then that conference went backwards on that. And since that conference, they've really reaffirmed what makes the Switch great, that basic concept.
Yeah, I think the thing that people need to remember, and I think it was something that when people like Colin Moriarty was doing his video after the Switch reveal, where he's like, well, Nintendo are fucked again, this feels like another Wii U. The reason why people like him were completely and utterly wrong is because we are too entrenched, right? We live and breathe video games. We pay attention to every little thing that happens and everything that's going on. Whereas your average Joe sees that Switch thing in October, and then the thing comes out in March, and they're excited for it because it has a Zelda on it and you can take it anywhere. They don't have any idea that it has this motion stuff in it that it allows people to do arms and 1-2 switch. They have no idea that people want to break off the Joy-Cons and play them like a 2-player system. All they know is they can play at home and they can take it with them. And that is 90% of people. Like, the small portion who watched that January event and then were very negative about it, that does not influence the wider market, because that information just doesn't get out there to those types of people because they're just a mainstream audience. And yeah, that's why it worked.
And they weren't the people who were going to buy 1-2 Switch anyway, even though
exactly
I did get that game, although I didn't buy it myself. But it was. You're exactly right. It's different markets, and for the 90% mainstream market, they were like, "That's a good concept. I approve. I want one," sort of thing. And the turnaround was a huge factor in that. Like you said, it was quick. It wasn't like, let's think about this and forget about it and then have to remember it again. It was, I've thought about it. It's coming in March. Let's get one.
Basically, yeah. And the difference between this and the Wii is that this was sold on the back of a hardcore game, a video game out of video game, Breath of the Wild, a big open world, whereas the Wii, it did have a Zelda, but it was sold off the back of a very casual game, Wii Sports. Still a fantastic game, but the kind of audience that you're attracting with those two different games are different audiences, right?
The Zelda audience will buy more than one game, and the Wii Sports audience by and large won't. And which makes more money in the end? The ones that buy more games. So
exactly.
We at this point that we think it sold 4.7 million units. Of those, we know that Zelda's up there.
So that was in July. That was the last known number. Was that much? So they were just under 5 million in July, which is when they last gave us stats. But at this point, I imagine they're past that. They're probably closing in on 7. I remember one of my predictions at the start of the year, which was like about the sales number. I can't remember what I said exactly, but
we'll get to that. It all comes around in the end.
Exactly, yeah. And just, what people have been saying about the trajectory of Switch and the potential of it is kind of crazy. And the fact that it is adhering more to a Wii-like success as opposed to, I don't know, Super Nintendo or a GameCube or whatever, like a kind of middling, like 40-50 million successes, it seems like it's going to surpass all that and all the expectations that people have had for it so far, that's fantastic, because ultimately I think this is the first time since back in the day that Nintendo have a system that is aimed at more of a games player as opposed to a casual audience that is going to do very well. And so the types of things we're going to see on the system, as we've already started to see, are going to be more targeted at people like us. And that is very, very good from our perspective. So moving on then, let's maybe talk about the launch, the games, and kind of what was happening in the first few months, because I do think it was kind of weak after Zelda. Like, Zelda is that one big tentpole title, and yes, it did incredibly well, and it was the big game, but there wasn't a huge amount of other stuff like around it at the very first day. Yeah. And it was kind of a slow build, I think, in terms of software like getting out there. It
was, and in terms of playtime and how I personally spent my time playing Switch when it launched, I was playing Zelda for months, and then the other games that I was talking about on the show were like other backlog stuff, so other like Wii U, 3DS backlog games that I was still catching up on. So if you're someone who's always living in the now and playing everything that's coming out now, and you don't really play much of a backlog, the launch wasn't strong in that sense, where once you're done with Zelda, you might have blasted through Zelda in a few weeks if you really went for it, and then after that, I think maybe you were in this position by a little bit, and he said, like, once that was beaten, it was kind of a long wait until that next big AAA with, I would guess the next big AAA was something like ARMS and then Splatoon. So like it was a long wait for the big stuff. There was some smaller stuff. I know you picked up is yours struck a
Mighty
Gunvolt? I'm getting the name all confused. I've just named the wrong game basically, but you know
it's
what
fine.
I'm saying.
It's Mighty Gunvolt Burst, and that was like in the middle of the summer, I think. So I didn't have a second game on my Switch until then, and I beat Zelda in a month. So my system was kind of laying around doing nothing for a while.
Snake Pass, which neither of us bit on. No pun intended.
Sure. But like, I think for us, it was, for me personally, first of all, like there are a lot of indie games originally, and we talked about this at the time, that were coming out that were also on PC and that ran better on PC and didn't have problems, like there were like glitches and stuff and frame rate issues that were happening that I wasn't too keen on. And also we had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is a game we both played and I wasn't interested in getting it again. ARMS, which we both played a bunch of the test punches and came to the conclusion that it wasn't really for us, and eventually came to Splatoon 2, which was my second like physical game that I picked up, which even then, Splatoon 2, great game, it's still very similar to a game we played a couple of years ago, right? So I do think that in terms of first-party software Nintendo published, it's not been super strong for someone who owned a Wii U, right? That's why I think that like people have been a little hyperbolic over the first-party lineup. And when I say first-party, I'm not counting things like Mario plus Rabbids because that is an Ubisoft game, even though it very Nintendo influence and has a lot of oversight. So for me personally, it's when we get to the end of the year, which is not even the end of its first year because it's its first like 9 months, because it came out in March, for God's sake. That's when I think we have a much stronger set of overall like Nintendo published stuff, because you're adding Xenoblade and Mario, which are two really big games.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's these last few weeks where a lot of those indie titles, stuff like Golf Story, SteamWorld Dig 2, that wasn't really ready for the first 6 months, are now hitting, and there's like an insane number of games coming out week on week on the eShop now, and it's the sheer quantity of great games coming between, like, and when I say great games, like smaller games, like the quantity of Nintendo AAAs is not like crazy intense, although of course, but
it's well paced, right? Because it is well paced. You do have the big tentpole title every month, and so September was Pokken Tournament, which again, as a Wii U player, this is not someone who played that game, but I played the demo. You know, I've known about that game. It feels like an old game to me. You know, it's not something I'm getting excited about. But you also have Mario plus Rabbids, which I mentioned, and that is a really big tentpole game for the Switch, even though Nintendo are not like as directly involved with it as they are with something like Mario or Zelda or whatever. So yeah, if we move on to like what has Nintendo gotten right or in the first 6 months, they've had a very steady pace of those first party releases, like a tentpole one each month. I really think there's been like a indie game to talk about at least every week. And not just,
and there's stuff, like little stuff like snipper clips and stuff I really enjoy. That's like smaller stuff. So
right, I mean, snipper clips are slightly different because that's actually a Nintendo published game as opposed to a proper indie. But it's an independent style game. I would say the same about Sonic Mania, which although it is from Sega, like a big company, it's a cheaper price. It's a smaller like type of game essentially, and it feels independent in that way. So in terms of those types of games, I think we've always had like something like a Mr. Shifty or something like a SteamWorld Dig 2. Like there's always been a couple of those a month, and like there's always every week something interesting on the eShop. So that's been good because it means that people have a nice like consistency of, and it feels like it's been snowballing recently. Like it feels like there's been a lot of new stuff and there's so much stuff announced. I'm just going to read out a list of independent games that some of them have come out, some of them are still coming. This is a crazy list, and this is just me just going through and skimming through and seeing the ones that I recognize, the ones that I think are a big deal. Shovel Knight, Golf Story, SteamWorld Dig 2, Goner, Lovers in a Dangerous Spacetime, Tumbleseed, Crypt of the Necrodancer, Runner 3, Wargroove, Ultimate Chicken Horse, Stardew Valley, Owlboy, Severed, Thumper, Overcooked, Indivisible, Duck Game, Super Meat Boy Forever, Towerfall, Oxenfree, Inside, Yooka-Laylee, Well to the West, Terraria, Snake Pass, Hollow Knight, Rime, Axiom Verge. These are that's like 20 games of incredible quality, and those are the types of games that you would not be getting on Wii U, most of them. And that's crazy to me that we have. So I think the craziest one is the fact that Inside is coming to the Switch, because I really did not think that would come when the Switch was announced or launched, and when they're talking about their indie plans. I'm like, okay, we're going to get a lot of indie games. I don't know how good a platform it will be for independent games, but I'm sure it will attract a bunch of people. And what we have seen is that consistently developers are like, oh yeah, the Nintendo Switch version sold more than every other version combined. It's like, what? Really? I mean, it makes sense because the eShop is way less crowded than the PSN or Xbox Live or even Steam, which is just a dump truck of nightmares.
And we know that there's 4 million Switch owners out there just hungry for more games, so they might download games that they otherwise might not be quite as interested in.
So that's the thing. And honestly, the reason why Switch is weird is because it's a success, but it has a crazy high attach rate, right? Like, you think about systems that are not a success, the biggest ones of recent times are the Vita and the Wii U. But the Vita and the Wii U have incredible attach rates. People who bought those systems bought a ton of games. And what we're seeing here is a system that is in way wider circulation, much more popular, but still has a really high attach rate because people want games they can play anywhere. And that's the core appeal, and that's why everyone is buying stuff, and it's why games like SteamWorld Dig 2 and Gold Story are at the top of the eShop, you know? People want new things, and they're getting them pretty consistently. So that's been pretty great.
What's been bad?
Well, let's stay on the good for a little bit longer, Bally, because I think we do need to talk about what Nintendo have done with third parties, right? The deals they've made, like talking to Ubisoft and doing Mario plus Rabbids, is important because I think it indicates that in the future they can get other companies on their side by lending out their IP. And not just doing that, but also the idea of having amiibo content like in Skyrim, or even just any type of character-based Nintendo stuff put in their game, like Monster Hunter sometimes does. Do you think that we're going to see more of the Ubisoft-style Mario plus Rabbids thing, or do you think we're going to keep seeing the Bethesda model of, okay, we're putting out our big games here, and Skyrim has the amiibo stuff, maybe Doom will have something, but we're putting it out here because the portability is a big deal, and that's why people are buying a lot of games on the system.
Yeah, I think Mario plus Rabbids was maybe the exception rather than the rule. I think I don't see that happening frequently, but something like it could definitely happen again. And I think the success of Mario plus Rabbids might make Nintendo think, who else can we team up with and get on board and do something with? So yeah, potentially. But I think the main thing is exactly what you said, the Bethesda style. Yeah. Let's test out how the Switch does, and let's try bringing our games over to it. And I think that it's highly likely something like GTA 5 might come around eventually. And who knows? It's that we're just, like we've said on previous shows, we're just waiting for that day where Switch gets a launch date at the same time as, the Xbox One, PS4. Yeah. That could happen in the end of 2018. We just need to wait and see. The Switch is on a good trajectory. It just needs to continue. Yeah.
I definitely think that things like GTA 5 are possibilities. The games that I start to think are not going to be possibilities are things like Destiny, right? Where it's an online focused game.
Yeah.
That, as we'll talk about in a second, Nintendo's still struggling mightily with their online service. And obviously it's going to be paid next year, and we're going to see what that's all about. But yeah, there's definitely room there for some big games to be coming to the system. So good stuff. That was good stuff. Let's move on to the bad. Let's talk about the online app, the service, the messaging, everything around it. I think has been a just fucking disaster. It's just not good on any front. I just struggle to think of any way in which Nintendo have done positive things with this idea of putting your voice chat and your communication with your friends on a separate device. Because I just can't think of one. Is there a benefit right now? Because it seems like a nightmare, honestly.
Yeah, it's horrible. I don't understand. I think we've said an awful lot on the show about this already, but it really needs to step up if people are really going to pay money for this. At this point in time, I'm only playing Splatoon online, and if that's all I'm paying for at the start of next year to play online, I think I might pass, Like, I might try and have my fill of Splatoon while it's free, and then unless something good comes along, and we obviously don't know about Virtual Console, that's another negative we can get to in a second, and that's obviously going to be tied in with this online deal in some way. We just don't know how yet. It's not a buy for me at the moment. Like, it's just not clicking, and obviously it'll be almost become compulsory once Smash Brothers comes out eventually, but at this point in time, it's not appealing in the slightest.
Yeah, it's almost to their detriment that they release something like Splatoon midway through this year, because most people are going to have their fill of it already, and that's why I think that they are almost certainly going to be launching their online app with a big online release. So I wouldn't be surprised if Smash Brothers is early next year, because it allows them to really leverage people signing up for their paid service, because you're goddamn right, I want to play Smash Brothers online, so they kind of have me by the balls with that one. So I do wonder if they'll make that choice or not. It seems like the smart business decision to do that, but we'll see. I don't know. They need to sort their shit out. It's awful. Like, the fact that they only recently put out an update that now lets your online app work in the background and you can turn off your screen. Like, we shouldn't be praising that. That should have fucking been there from the beginning. Like, what the hell? Like, it was such a disaster. I don't understand how it was that bad. Another negative for me is I still think their pricing on stuff like peripherals and controllers is way too fucking high. I still haven't picked up a Pro Controller, and I'm kind of staunchly against getting one for anything more than 40 quid, because I just don't think it's worth that much. It's really not. There's HD Rumble in it, obviously. There's like the NFC, but I don't feel like that stuff. Yeah, apparently a hidden speaker that Bally's discovered.
Speaker.
Yeah, I just don't think that stuff is worth it, and I hope that prices on that starts to come down, or maybe that's just a UK thing, but I don't know, America seems to be getting screwed on those prices as well. So yeah, that's pretty negative for me.
That stuff, like the Pro Controller, I just accepted I was going to pay absolutely loads for this, and
kind of just YOLO'd the Pro Controller.
Like it was like, it's going to be at this price a really long time. I don't want to miss out on all the stuff coming and play it without a Pro Controller. So let's just buy one now, and then I'm paying a premium for basically having it early, essentially. And it's just about rationalizing it in that sense, although I completely agree. It was way too much money for that technology, and it's just like, come on, let's bring down the pricing just a tad. But it's hard. They're never going to bring down the pricing as long as it's selling at the level it's selling.
Exactly.
And I do believe that the Joy-Cons are selling well too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but anyway. I think maybe another negative is that they are struggling to meet demand, although this is almost like a good negative in a way, because it's like it means the system's doing well.
Apparently it's getting better. I've heard a couple of podcasts recently mainly talk about North America, saying like Switches are available, so like that's on the up at least ahead of like holiday approaching.
I think Japan is still a nightmare hellscape, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, Japan is just
it sucks for those guys. That's real bad. But yeah, I think that they're getting there definitely with Switch demand, and
come to Europe. They are
plentiful
in plentiful supply.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other big one for me is just general OS stuff. Like the eShop is still really bad. The only time I know there's a sale on is because someone makes a Twitter post or a gaff thread, or I randomly see it in the news feed. Like, there's no easy way to see games on sale in the shop. That's terrible. That's fucking awful. You need to be able to surface that stuff, because some people might be really interested in a game if it drops in price briefly, and I need them to just revitalize everything surrounding that. They need to get better apps on there. They need like this, extra stuff that other consoles have and have had forever. Like, where is Netflix? Where is Amazon? Where is all this other stuff that people use devices for? I like the snappiness of the OS, and I think some people are worried about it becoming over bloated by adding features and things, but you know,
there's definitely a happy medium between the minimalist nothingness that it is at the moment and bloated.
Absolutely.
So there's room to improve. I just think that there's like this sort of channel newsfeed thing where like videos and screenshots of upcoming games, and like I was just like on that, and I thought, oh, I never watched those Zelda videos they did about the making of Breath of the Wild. I'd really like to watch those. And then I was like, how on earth do I find those? So I clicked on, there's like a Zelda channel, so I clicked the Zelda channel. It's not even listed there. So I literally had to scroll to the bottom of all of these like news and announcements and videos just to get to these Zelda videos, part 1, 2, and 3 of how the making of Breath of the Wild. And it's like, how on earth can that be a thing? Like, I like that they're putting these videos out there, but can we just have something that resembles some structure that I can just navigate around? And like I said, with the
just like any sort of search bar or something, you know?
Exactly, a search bar. And like the eShop, it's charts, it's a list of what's come out most recently, and that list of what's come out most recently just continues and goes back to the launch of the Switch. And it's like there's no real other way of listing all the games. It's insane.
And it starts to become incredibly useless in a week where 18 different games come out and something like SteamWorld Dig 2 is pushed to the bottom after being there for a week. Like, that's just not on, you know? Like, it does...
And so the second SteamWorld Dig 2 drops out the charts, it's essentially in this pile of mess. Like, you are so unlikely to find SteamWorld Dig 2 once it's outside of the charts, because more games are going to come out. It's going to scroll down further. Like, they've not got, like with the Wii U, they had a sort of charts of all time, so like the most popular downloads of all time, and the Wii U eShop is actually so impressive when you go back to it. And I shouldn't be saying this, like that is an old shop. But you can click like indies, you can click platformers, you can click Mario, you can click Zelda, you can click Metroid, and it'll just list, it'll just do random groupings of games under a million categories that you might be thinking about at the time. Like, they just need some diversity, and that's not to mention another negative, which is just like there's just no virtual console, like, and we don't even have an answer to virtual console. Some people have almost moved on from the idea of even wanting a virtual console. They've sort of just decided, well, Nintendo obviously not doing a la carte in the traditional sense anymore, and because they're not going to do it, I'm not going to even think about it. I'm going to pick up my SNES Classic and not think about it. It's like, I'm still of the firm belief that Nintendo should in some way sell a la carte virtual console games on Switch. Like, I just think it's a huge part of Nintendo is their history, and that sense of owning something permanently. And now that they have the Switch, playing it docked versus on the go is just a really great thing about the Switch that's unique, and it would just work perfectly with a whole host of virtual console games. And I'm personally still really disappointed it's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a very big feeling that it's all going to be tied into their online service, and
I'm feeling that as well.
Yeah, we'll get that next year, and we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think that's the other opportunity for them to get money out of people for the online service is how good is the virtual console stuff going to be when it's tied in with that. And we don't know yet. It's speculation, but let's move on then to maybe what has surprised us the most out of the first 6 months of the Switch. Bally, do you have something to go with?
Just the sheer quantity of games at the end of 2017 that are like on my list and that I'm excited to play and that I'm currently playing. I think that Golf Story is just a joy to play. It's something, like I said, I did not know about, and it's just come. It's Switch exclusive at the moment. That's awesome. Like, that's just really cool. And I'm excited for stuff like Rocket League at the end of the year. I think 2018 is looking great. Octopath is such a surprise. I loved that demo so much. As someone who's had a fairly mixed experience of like JRPGs and stuff, like that was just doing all the right things. And I think E3 was solid. I think a couple of announcements from there that probably not next year, like Metroid Prime 4. I think that's going to be way off, obviously.
Yeah,
but
Prime 4 was a big surprise.
Lovely surprise.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a nice thing to know that it's coming to the Switch, and like I'm looking forward to playing Prime 3 and then waiting out the many years it will be until Prime 4.
Yeah, we have no idea when. Just speaking of like games that you want to play, I think Axiom Verge comes out next week, and there was another one that comes out next week that I think you wanted to play as well. But yeah, it's stacking up in terms of...
Is Meat Boy finally out?
No, not yet. It's coming. But Oxenfree, I think, is coming out next week as well.
Right.
So yeah, it's so much to play. The thing that surprised me the most, by far, is Bethesda's support of the Switch. It has come out of the fucking blue.
Right.
That original Switch trailer had my mouth drop because I saw Skyrim, and then a few weeks ago we saw Doom and Wolfenstein. What is going on? Like, seriously, I don't understand what is happening. A company that has never paid Nintendo lip service in the past, and now they are basically their most supported third-party publisher. Like, we have Capcom, who are so fucking timid, they don't even want to touch the Switch with a 7-foot pole because they're fucking morons. And yet we have Bethesda, who are all open arms and just like, come to me, Nintendo, I'll give you all of my delights. It's just really fucking weird. We're just such in a strange situation right now. And I don't know how it happened, but it did. Another thing that surprised me is that $300 was the right price point. Honestly thought it was too much money for most people, and yet the system is selling out constantly and people just want it. It was the right price to put it at. It's a quality device and people want to pay that much for it. So that I was wrong about that. And then I guess just like we talked about it before, but the idea that this is a system with a large audience that also has a high attach rate for software, like people just want to buy games on it and play games on it. And yeah, I didn't quite expect that. So yeah, lots of good surprises with the Switch, but we're also looking forward to what is coming, not only at the end of this year, but also 2018, because there's big franchises still to hear from. Bally, what do you think Nintendo are going to announce for 2018? What do you think the big tentpole games are going to be?
It's going to either be Pokemon or Smash Brothers for 2018, I feel, or maybe even Animal Crossing. I think of those three games, we're definitely getting at least one of them in 2018, and I think it will either be announced at the start of the year or if not at E3, and there will then be that holiday game. I'd be surprised if all three of those miss out in 2018. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, those make sense. For me, I'm thinking about what are the Wii U games that need to be on this thing. Smash Brothers is the number one. Number two for me is Mario Maker. I think
how's that gonna
I
work?
think that they should do a sequel to Mario Maker as opposed to porting the original game. Not only because I don't think they're going to figure out a way to do backwards compatibility, or they could figure out a way to do that with like old courses, but I think they may want to just start afresh with a new system and a new set of tools, like the ability to maybe do slopes is what the word I'm looking for, stuff like that. Adding in maybe Mario 2 US mechanics, like maybe making that game a part of the canon again.
Sell it with a packed in
stylus,
touch sensitive stylus. So like you can get them for like iPads.
Yeah, a capacitive stylus.
They
basically
sold it with that, a capacitive, exactly. I could see that happening, you know. I think it'd be controversial to have it only working in handheld mode, but you know, there's a handful of games already doing it.
You see, I don't feel that way at all anymore because of the number of games that are just like whatever. Like Nintendo don't seem to actually care about that. They just want games on the platform. So the fact that Severed is only playable in handheld mode, you know, no one's getting upset about it. That's how the game works. That's how you play it. And
as long as everything's not only handheld mode, I think it's absolutely fine. And like 99% of stuff works on both. So I think it's fine. I think they could, like you said, totally get away with Mario Maker working handheld mode only.
And even if not, like you can do a rudimentary button-based version of it on the TV. It's going to be worse.
And ultimately, you can play the levels on the TV.
Exactly.
And that's the bit that would look cool on TV anyway.
Yeah. And also Mario Maker works because you have the screen and the controls with you at the same time. That's why it's so great. And you kind of have to have that in handheld in order to design levels. So yeah, that's the other one. The other one that I think is probably going to get some sort of announcement is Bayonetta, because Platinum have been teasing way too much about this stuff, and they've also been doing PC re-releases of Vanquish and of Bayonetta on Steam. So I do think there's going to be a Bayonetta re-release on Switch. There'll probably be a re-release on PS4 and Xbox One as well, but Switch will probably get Bayonetta 2 because, it's a Nintendo-published game exclusive to their platform. So that might happen. It may also be, a thing that they do in order to get excitement for a potential Bayonetta 3. So that may be announced as well. In terms of, the big one, Animal Crossing is the one that is the most obvious to me, mainly because I think
it's due.
I think they are going to be talking about that app as well. Like, what is the Animal Crossing mobile game? They already said it's going to work with their home platform in some way. So there's going to be an integration, and I can't see them announcing the Animal Crossing mobile game without giving some details about what the Switch game will be. So I think Animal Crossing is probably the shoe-in. Pokemon's probably going to be 2019. Smash Brothers is up in the air. I could go either way on Smash Brothers. I'm just not really sure about it. And then there's no fucking way in hell Prime comes out next year. Just like with Xenoblade 2, I'm going to say I'm going to snap my Switch, which maybe will make it come out.
You're already on your second Switch, NBZ. You might be on third by the end of 2018.
Oh, yeah, crazy. There's also Fire Emblem, which I'm very excited to see, because...
Is that confirmed for 2018?
It is, yeah, it is. I think it's probably the most likely to come out mid-year 2018. And boy, it's been a long time since the last console Fire Emblem game. And, the production value that they have lent to this series on 3DS really makes me excited to see what they pull off on Switch, honestly. Even just looking at some of the cutscenes in Fire Emblem Warriors, I'm like, wow, this looks really good. Like, there's nice, kind of almost cel-shadedness to the art style. Like, it's popping well on that screen, and I think...
And I hope they do go big on that, and they don't just go back to just doing the style of the current 3DS games.
Yeah.
I hope they take it to the next level, especially with those cutscenes.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if they keep the sprites, I think that would look good for, like on the maps and things. That would.
I think it's going to be 3D models probably on the maps, because that's what Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn did.
I think I'd be happy either way, but it's all about them cutscenes and how they look on Switch. That would be great.
Sure. Definitely a big thing. What do you think the big third-party games are going to be? Do you think that we'll get a Megaton next year?
It's really hard to say, isn't it? Because the ones we had the ones announced this year were just such surprises that I could say something surprising now and you'd be like, no way, Bally, but then ultimately you have to be like, well, Bethesda are supporting the system, strangely enough. I don't know. Who knows? Could it be Overwatch time?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that I'm hoping for. It's consumed my existence on PC, and I don't like playing games like that with sticks. Just first-person shooters, I've got way too used to the precision of mouse. And if it gets put on Switch, there's a potential of not only for someone like you having motion controls, because you like that in your shootings games, but also it's portable. And so I think I can get around the fact that I don't have like that much precision on a console, because I can play it wherever. Like, it kind of gets rid of that need. It's just a big deal. So that's my one. I also think Grand Theft Auto is happening. Like, come on, at this point, that game came out on 360 and PS3. It's going to easily run on Switch. It's a money cow. Like, Rockstar makes so much, and they're putting LA Noire on it. So who would have predicted LA Noire was going to be a Switch game? That's such a weird pick. Like, wow, out of all these games.
Yeah.
But it's happening. And will we see like these big service-based games like Destiny, like, Rainbow Six Siege? Like,
I think they are the least likely out of everything we've discussed. They are. But I think Bethesda also used to be the least likely, so let's not rule it out.
No, we'll see. And yeah, I feel like we're just going to get more indie support that keeps exceeding or equaling what the other platforms are doing. I don't know how many more exclusives Nintendo will get, or just timed exclusives, because honestly, I think it's good for indies to be everywhere. Like, it's good for them, it's good for just people generally. But yeah, I just think we're going to get a big expansion generally of that stuff. Anything else you think 2018 holds for us, Bally? Are we going to get a price drop at all, or do you think the system's too popular for that? Do you think there's going to be a D-pad Joy-Con thrown in there? Any wild out there theories for next year?
Yeah, I'm feeling any shift on re-releases of hardware, even Joy-Cons, even D-pad on a Joy-Con. I don't think anything's going to change until at least middle of 2019.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see 2018 as being the time where they're like, here's the small version of the Switch.
Right.
I think it's going to be a while before any of that. Yeah. I'm just the most excited about Octopath.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like maybe my number one thing of 2018.
Yeah.
And it's another thing I just wasn't expecting to be pumped about.
Totally.
But yeah. Another Switch exclusive.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that pretty much closes things out for our look back and look forward about the Nintendo Switch 6 months into its life. The first party stuff, I, as a Wii U owner, have not been like super thrilled about, but when you combine everything together, it's been a pretty ridiculous 6 months for Nintendo. And I think by the time we get to March, this may be the best year one of a console that's ever happened. It's crazy. It really is. So yeah, let's close things out, Bally. Where can people find us? I'll tell you first. You can find me on Twitter at Lord NBZ. It's very convenient. You can spell it by typing it out. Where can people find you, Bally?
Please find me on Twitter at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91. And also make sure to follow the podcast Twitter account, which is at TNL Podcast. That is at TNL Podcast. And if you follow that account, you will see a pinned tweet with a link to join our Discord server, which has been growing, and we're getting some good conversations on the go in there. So definitely check that out. Click the link at the pinned tweet we have there on at TNL Podcast. And of course, we didn't cover emails this week, but it's something we will be returning to. So make sure to send us an email. Any thoughts, any questions, we want to hear them. The email address is thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That is thisnintendolife@gmail.com.
Always need more emails. Get sending us some emails. It's very important. You can also find us in various places. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on any podcast app that you can find out there and download things to. Give us a review on iTunes, that'd be very helpful. I just actually noticed recently we've had like 3 extra UK iTunes reviews that I didn't know about, so we'll maybe have to call those out at some point on the show. But wherever you are, always helps to build the show up and let other people know that it exists and that it's a good show, because
I think it was International Podcasting Day yesterday.
Yes,
so
it was.
Happy International Podcasting Day.
Yeah, we both listen to a lot of podcasts, so it's...
but I mean, that happens every day. So.
Absolutely. That is no different from any other day. But that's pretty much going to wrap us up for this time. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And thanks for supporting the show. Episode 100 was a really big downloaded show, so thank you everyone for that. Despite it being 4 hours long, people seem to enjoy it.
Well done for hanging in.
So we'll continue being here if you do, and we'll continue to talk about some video games. So until next time, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Goodbye, everyone. The musical interlude used on today's show was Lower Brinstar from Metroid Samus Returns. Copyright Nintendo 2017.